You know, when you've walked through the fire of a relationship with a narcissist, it changes something deep inside you. It's not just the breakup that hurts, it's the quiet aftermath, the confusion, the self-doubt, the way your heart flinches even at kindness. You start questioning everything, your choices, your instincts, your worth, and most painfully, your ability to ever trust again. But here's the truth. What you went through wasn't love. It was control dressed up as affection. It was charm mixed with manipulation, and now you're standing at the edge of something powerful, the chance to rebuild yourself, piece by piece, stronger and wiser than before. Healing after a narcissist isn't about forgetting what happened or rushing into something new. It's about learning to feel safe in your own heart again. It's about realizing that your ability to love deeply was never the problem, it was your strength all along. And when you begin to trust yourself again, that's when real love, healthy love, finally has space to enter. There comes a moment in life when you realize that the version of love you were taught to accept was never love at all. It was a performance, a cycle of highs and lows, affection followed by punishment, validation wrapped in control. Emotional manipulation works in quiet, calculated ways. It doesn't announce itself with anger or violence every time. Sometimes it hides behind sweet words, grand gestures, or guilt that keeps you stuck. You start second, guessing yourself, apologizing for things you didn't do, walking on eggshells to avoid the next outburst. The saddest part is how small you begin to feel, how your own voice fades as you prioritize someone else's comfort over your own peace. Breaking those chains begins with the hardest act of all, admitting that you were trapped in a dynamic that was never healthy. It's not about blaming yourself for staying. It's about understanding how powerful manipulation can be and how deeply it rewires the way you think and feel. The mind learns to anticipate chaos, to mistake intensity for intimacy, to confuse control with care. But once you begin to see it for what it is, you start taking back your power. Awareness becomes your first act of freedom. It's like light creeping into a dark room. Suddenly the shadows lose their power. Rising above emotional manipulation isn't a single decision, it's a process. It's waking up each day and choosing to believe that you deserve better. It's catching those thoughts that whisper you're too sensitive, too broken, too difficult, and reminding yourself that those words were never yours. Healing requires boundaries, and boundaries often feel harsh when you've been trained to please. But boundaries are not barriers, they are the bridges to your peace. Every time you say no to manipulation, you are saying yes to your dignity, your clarity. Your sense of self-freedom also means learning to sit with discomfort. Because when you've lived under manipulation, calm can feel boring, kindness can feel suspicious, and genuine love can feel foreign. You may want to run back to what feels familiar, even if it hurt you. But staying the course, letting yourself unlearn those patterns, that's where your true strength lies. You rebuild trust in yourself first, the trust that you will protect your peace, that you will not abandon yourself again just to be loved, and one day you'll notice the change. You'll speak without fear of being silenced. You'll love without needing to shrink yourself. You'll look in the mirror and see someone who made it through the storm, not untouched but unbroken. Because rising above emotional manipulation isn't just about escaping the person who controlled you. It's about reclaiming the person you were always meant to be, confident, grounded, and free. There is a point after the chaos ends when everything becomes quiet, almost too quiet, and that silence can feel uncomfortable. For so long, your life revolved around someone else's moods, needs, and validation, and now that they're gone, you're left facing the emptiness they left behind. But within that stillness lies the beginning of something sacred, the process of rediscovering who you are. Healing before you love again isn't about closing your heart forever. It's about meeting yourself in a way you never have before. It's realizing that the version of you that survived the storm is not the same person who walked into it. You start by acknowledging what you lost, not just the relationship, but the parts of yourself that got silenced along the way. The laughter you stopped sharing because it annoyed them, the opinions you softened to avoid conflict, the dreams you set aside to make space for theirs. Healing means slowly bringing those parts back to life. It's remembering that you are not difficult for having feelings, not dramatic for wanting clarity, and not unlovable for needing consistency. You begin to understand that the love you gave so freely to someone who didn't honor it was never wasted. It showed you the depth of your capacity to care, and now it's time to turn that same compassion inward. Rediscovering yourself means learning what peace feels like again. It's noticing the difference between being alone and being lonely. It's realizing that solitude is not punishment, but a chance to breathe, reflect, and grow. During this time, you start to rebuild trust in your intuition, that quiet voice that warned you before, but was drowned out by charm or fear. Now you listen to it, you honor it, you let it guide you without shame or doubt. You learn to set boundaries not because you're guarded, but because you finally understand your worth. Boundaries become your act of self-respect, a way of saying I matter too. Healing before you love again also means forgiving yourself for not seeing the red flags sooner, for staying longer than you should have, for hoping things would change. Forgiveness doesn't excuse what happened, it releases you from carrying the weight of it. As you heal, your heart begins to soften again, not toward the one who hurt you, but toward the idea of love itself. You begin to see that love isn't supposed to be confusing or painful. It's supposed to be steady, safe, and mutual. But to recognize that kind of love, you have to first become comfortable with your own company. To find fulfillment in your own presence, eventually, something shifts. The longing for someone else's approval fades, replaced by a quiet confidence that you are enough as you are. You start to dream again, to laugh without fear, to look at the future not as something to survive, but something to embrace. And when love does find its way back into your life, it will meet a version of you who is whole, grounded, and no longer searching for someone to complete you. Because you've already found that completeness within yourself, there comes a stage in healing when you start to realize that growth isn't a straight line. It's messy, unpredictable, and often painful. After everything you've endured, it's natural to want quick answers or immediate peace, but healing doesn't follow deadlines. Trusting the process means accepting that the very discomfort you're trying to escape might be the thing shaping you into someone stronger. Pain has a strange way of revealing truth about others, about love, and most importantly, about yourself. It shows you what you can survive, what you deserve, and what you will never tolerate again when you've been hurt deeply. It's easy to fall into the trap of trying to fix everything at once. You might feel pressure to move on quickly, to prove that you're fine, to show the world that you've conquered the pain. But real healing asks for patience. It's the small daily acts, choosing peace over chaos, silence over reaction, boundaries over approval, that start to rebuild your strength. Trusting the process isn't about pretending the pain doesn't exist. It's about understanding that pain is not your enemy, it's a teacher. It's the mirror reflecting back all the lessons you ignored while you were just trying to survive. Turning pain into power happens when you stop fighting against what happened and start learning from it. You begin to see how the heartbreak cracked you open, exposing the parts of yourself that needed attention, the insecurities you buried, and the fears you tried to avoid. This awareness hurts, but it's the foundation of transformation. Power doesn't come from pretending you're unbothered. It comes from owning your story without shame. It comes from saying, yes, I was broken, but I'm still here, still growing, still choosing to believe in my own worth. Trusting the process also means giving yourself permission to feel everything: the anger, the sadness, the loneliness. Healing isn't about bypassing emotions. It's about allowing them to move through you without letting them define you. You start to notice that the moments that used to break you now teach you resilience. The situations that once triggered fear now awaken clarity. The people who once controlled your emotions no longer hold that power because you've learned to hold space for yourself instead. In time, you realize that the pain you carried wasn't a punishment, it was a passage. It was life redirecting you toward your strength, your voice, your truth. The lessons hidden inside your suffering become your armor, quiet, steady, and unshakable. You stop seeking closure from others because you've found it within your own healing. You stop chasing validation because your self-trust becomes your anchor. And while you may still carry scars, they no longer represent weakness. They are proof that you turned your wounds into wisdom. Trusting the process is not about waiting for life to get easier. It's about becoming the person who can handle what once felt impossible. There is a moment in healing when you realize that love without boundaries is not love at all, but self-abandonment disguised as care. When you've been through relationships that drained you, manipulated you, or made you doubt your own worth, the idea of setting boundaries can feel foreign, even selfish. But boundaries are not walls meant to keep people out. They are doors that allow in only what aligns with your peace, your values, and your emotional safety. Building boundaries is not about fear or bitterness. It's about self-respect. It's the process of saying, I will no longer sacrifice my well-being just to be accepted or understood. When you begin to establish boundaries, it's uncomfortable at first. You might feel guilt creeping in because you've been trained to prioritize others' needs over your own. You might hear that inner voice whispering that you're being too much, too distant, too demanding. But that voice isn't truth, it's conditioning. You spent so much time trying to be the easy one, the understanding one, the forgiving one, that you forgot you're allowed to take up space. Boundaries are the way you teach others how to treat you, but even more importantly, they're how you teach yourself that your comfort matters. Every no you say becomes a step toward freedom. Every moment you choose silence instead of explanation strengthens your confidence. Protecting your heart with confidence means understanding that not everyone deserves access to your emotional world. You can be kind without being available, compassionate without being consumed, forgiving without being foolish. It's realizing that empathy has limits and that giving endlessly to those who only take leaves you empty. Boundaries are how you conserve your emotional energy so that when real, healthy love comes, you're not exhausted or guarded, but balanced and aware. You learn that distance can be healthy, that detachment can be loving, and that protecting your peace is not rude, it's necessary. As you build stronger boundaries, you start to notice a shift. The people who respected you all along begin to draw closer, while those who only thrived on your compliance fall away. It's painful to watch some relationships fade, but you also start to understand that their departure is part of your growth. You can't heal in the same space that hurt you. By choosing yourself, you invite healthier energy into your life, people who value honesty, mutual respect, and emotional maturity. You realize that real love doesn't test your boundaries, it honors them. Eventually, you stop apologizing for protecting your heart. You no longer need to justify why you don't respond to every message, why you won't tolerate manipulation, or why you prioritize peace over chaos. You start walking differently speaking with more certainty, and showing up as someone who knows their worth. Boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges to authenticity. They keep your heart open but guarded with wisdom. And as you continue to build them, you discover that the most powerful form of love begins with the one you show yourself every time you choose to honor your limits and defend your peace after experiencing deep betrayal or manipulation. The idea of opening your heart again can feel terrifying. The mind remembers the pain vividly, the promises broken, the trust violated, the subtle ways your value was questioned until you doubted yourself. Fear becomes a constant companion, whispering that love is dangerous, that vulnerability is a mistake, and that the safest choice is to close off entirely. But the heart has a remarkable resilience, a quiet strength that survives even when trust has been shattered. Choosing love without fear is not about ignoring past wounds. It is about acknowledging them, learning from them, and moving forward with awareness and courage. Opening your heart, again, begins with self-compassion. You have to remind yourself that you are worthy of love, not because someone else says it, but because it is an intrinsic truth. When you value yourself, you start to understand that love is not something to be earned or begged for. It is something that flows naturally when two people respect and cherish each other. Part of choosing love without fear is letting go of the idea that your past defines your future. The experiences that once made you cautious now serve as your compass, helping you recognize what is healthy, what is kind, and what is reciprocal. Vulnerability becomes your ally rather than your enemy. It requires patience because the habit of guarding your heart is deeply ingrained. You may find yourself hesitating, testing people before you allow intimacy, questioning motives, or retreating when emotions intensify. These reactions are natural, but they do not have to become permanent patterns. Slowly, you practice opening your heart in small ways, sharing your thoughts honestly, expressing your needs clearly, and trusting your instincts when choosing who deserves closeness. Each act of vulnerability becomes a declaration that you refuse to be defined by fear. Learning to love again also involves discernment. Not everyone will honor your openness, and that is a reality to accept without bitterness. Protecting your boundaries while remaining emotionally available is the balance that allows love to flourish safely. You become skilled at differentiating between genuine connection and manipulation, between people who uplift you and those who drain you. Over time, you cultivate relationships built on trust, respect, and shared growth, where love is a source of joy, not anxiety. As you continue this journey, the heart that once trembled begins to beat with confidence. You discover that love is not a gamble, but a choice, a conscious decision to engage with life fully, to share your essence with others while holding onto your integrity. The fear that once controlled your decisions loses its power, replaced by the understanding that vulnerability is strength and that healing does not preclude happiness. With each step, you open a little wider, allowing compassion, connection, and intimacy to enter your life again, and in doing so, you reclaim the right to experience love deeply and authentically. As we come to the close of this journey, it's important to pause and reflect on how far you've come. Healing after pain, betrayal, or manipulation is not a straight path, and it is not a race. Each step you've taken towards self-awareness, self-love, and emotional freedom is a victory in itself. You faced the shadows of doubt, the echoes of past hurt, and the lingering fear of vulnerability, and yet here you are stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. Every boundary you've set, every act of self-compassion, every moment you chose peace over chaos has been a brick in the foundation of a heart that can love without losing itself. Choosing to open your heart again is not a sign of weakness, but of immense courage. It is proof that you refuse to let fear dictate the story of your life. The scars you carry are not marks of defeat. They are reminders of your strength, lessons etched into your soul, guiding you toward healthier, more fulfilling connections. As you step forward into love again, let it be intentional, grounded in self-respect, and free from the patterns that once held you captive. Trust yourself, honor your journey, and embrace the possibility of joy, knowing that the heart that has healed is capable of giving and receiving love in its truest, most authentic form.